Hello, everyone, and good morning. Welcome to our live feed update for August 22nd. I'm your host, Taran Armstrong, and I'm here to update you on everything that happened yesterday on the Big Brother 26 live feeds. It was day 37 in the house, and there's more talk about flipping. And there's not quite a conclusion yet either. So, once again, we are here on a Thursday morning, and we do not know who of the three possible nominees will be leaving tonight. Stay tuned. We will have an update for the latest on where things stand. But in the meantime, we're gonna talk it through. And with me to talk it through is Scally. How you doing, Scally?
Hello, hello. I'm so good. I've just been rolling butt all morning, getting ready for this update. I'm so excited to be here and talk about the many things that have been flipping in this house over the past 24
Oh
hours.
boy. Well, as we all know, of course, Tucker, the HOH, currently has Brooklyn, Cam, and Chelsea on the block. Tucker wants one of Brooklyn or Chelsea to leave. He wants Cam to stay, but the opposite is desired from T'Kor and Kimo, who at the very least want Chelsea to stay in the event that Brooklyn wins the AI arena. That has been the primary drama when it comes to this vote, and it is not all that dissimilar to last week when they had a particular desire for a particular result. Like last week, they are waiting until the last possible moment to try to orchestrate some kind of flip. So we're gonna get into all of that here today.
Yeah, I have been on here publicly saying, like, I don't know, I think the AI arena is going to inspire more conservative gameplay, but these people have said, no, I don't care. I will be preparing for a house flip, even if it is unlikely to even be a situation that we find ourselves in. Doesn't matter to me.
Hmm. So, there was some stuff happening during the day. Brooklyn and Chelsea were both campaigning to varying degrees of success, but like actual decent success. Brooklyn actually made a fairly effective campaign to Angela. They kind of connected over some like illnesses that they've sort of both had experience in the past, and had this like emotional kind of connection. And really, like, if anything were up to Angela, would have been enough to convince Angela to maybe consider keeping her around. But of course, Angela is going to defer to Tucker on this, so it didn't particularly matter. But I would say overall this week there has been some pretty good campaigning.
Yeah, definitely. People have been, working their little tails off trying to stay in the house. I would say at that moment, for sure, probably at this moment, Angela would prefer a Brooklyn to stay. They connected on, I believe Brooklyn was talking about her, her mom's experience with cancer, I believe, and really did hit Angela home. She went off and was pretty emotional about it, saying she feels really guilty, but I don't think that Angela is going to be pushing any which way. She's just happy to be included at the moment.
Yes, and so Angela talks with Tucker. Tucker, of course, still wants Brooklyn or Chelsea. Brooklyn first, but also Chelsea gone. And he also starts talking about like, hey, we got to start, making some other things, bringing some more people in. What would you think about like the two of us with like MJ and Leah or something like that? Like maybe pull them in. They, by the way, they are the unexpected alliance, the two of them, because how unexpected is it that that's the two of them working together?
Yeah, it's not hypocritical when you are the one who has multiple alliances all over the house. It's totally fine. No one is the wiser. Everyone will definitely keep this quiet. It's all of the people with the most shut mouths in the house, I'm sure.
Hmm. More people just, just taking Quinn's stuff. You know what I mean? Everyone was like, "Oh, Quinn, he's the worst." But I actually just really, I think they were all just jealous of what Quinn was up to. Everyone's trying to steal Quinn's whole deal.
It's so interesting to watch, like, what we very clearly clocked Quinn's strategy as being and seeing a lot of people doing it a lot better. Most of them putting themselves in the same exact position that we thought Quinn fancied himself being, and obviously we saw that fail, and people, I don't know if they like saw exactly like because they also very much were aware that Quinn was scheming, Quinn was trying to make these alliances. I don't know if they thought, huh, that is a cushy relationship, or if the pieces were already in play and they just inserted themselves in there.
Yeah, well, Tucker also says, well, what about Joseph too? We could maybe add Joseph. Now, it's worth noting the relationship between Joseph and Angela, even at the start of this week, was a bit strained. She wasn't very trusting of Joseph. Tucker has been putting in some work to try to get her to be a little more okay with Joseph. Um, and then specifically in this conversation, very much like, hey, and Joseph himself has been working on Angela. And so Tucker suggests, what about maybe pulling Joseph in, maybe Joseph and Leah? Obviously, Tucker knows that Joseph has been trying to work on Leah himself and that he's wanting Leah to be in his ideal final eight. And I think Tucker feels like he's been working on Leah and that he can work Leah as well. And so he suggests that, and Angela's just, "Yeah, I'm down for whatever." Like, "Listen, Tucker, you point the way. I will follow."
Look, there are a lot of people who are basically just down to do whatever Tucker wants in the house, but Angela might be number one. It is absolutely wild to watch. I mean, we have known that when Tucker wants to have a great social game, Tucker does generally have a pretty good social game, if not one of the best in the house. But to watch him just completely rebuild from the ground up and put himself into one of the best positions in the house is mind blowing after the last couple weeks.
I mean, we can't forget that he saved her with the veto when he was on the block. Like,
Yep.
that's
Yep.
it's a pretty big thing to have done, especially in Angela's eyes. I think that's a big part of it. And honestly, this is Angela we're talking about. Is she actually loyal to Tucker to the end of the game? I don't think so. I think she would betray him in a heartbeat down the road. But she also recognizes right now that being the number one Tucker soldier is great for her game. It's just
Y-
there's just no downside right now. So,
Yeah. I think there's a world in which Angela might think she's very loyal to Tucker and might think by next week that she's not going to have a change of heart, but I don't really trust any little thing not to set Angela off, let alone the opportunity to win the game at the end.
mm. Angela goes and talks to Joseph about this idea of like, hey, what about, forming something a little smaller with Tucker? And Joseph's like, I would love that. And when Leah is brought up, he's like, oh, yes, Leah's like my favorite person in this house.
Hmm. Funny how that is also not an uncommon thing for people to be saying as well.
Yeah. Very telling thing to be saying. He also talks about how, because Tucker had told him that people had been making fun of him the night before, and so he talks a little bit about that. And Angela is like very protective, like, "Oh, let me at him." I know what that's like. And so this, I think, has really helped solidify the work that has been uh being worked on all week long from Joseph. It feels as though Angela is opening up to him, at least. Again, like, for the record, I don't think we can take anything at face value when it comes to Angela, but at least in terms of where she is placing her eggs right now, in it's currently in the Tucker and now Joseph basket.
Yeah, I mean, I think that we can't take anything for weeks granted with Angela, but I don't think we can do the same with Joseph. So like for right now, it sounds great. Angela may decide on a whim that this doesn't work for her, and Joseph may just go along with anyone else's whims as well to decide that yeah, this is what's best for me. And I think that's one of the strengths of Joseph's game.
Hmm. Speaking of Joseph, there's a bit of a funny little thing going on yesterday because Brooklyn was talking to him and had realized that she had gone to school with Joseph's brother. And I was like, "Oh yeah, we were friends. This is great. This is awesome. You should vote for me to stay."
Yeah.
Uh,
We're actually still best friends. You don't see me around, but we talk all the time.
um, only to have Joseph's brother come out on Twitter and be like, "I don't know her."
I'm obsessed. Easy, my favorite house guest social media for the season. Just, a lot of retweets, but otherwise just like so funny.
Yeah. So that was a funny little piece of drama going on there. So we got to get into the bulk of it here though, because this is the relevancy to tonight is what we need to be talking about, and that is that the vote specifically between Chelsea and Cam is still up in the air. We've counted these votes before, but let's do it again because we have to do this season. We actually have to count votes. Um, so in the event that Brooklyn is against Cam, there's not enough momentum right now to save Brooklyn. There was some talk of it, and there's even some more talk of it last night. But it just doesn't feel worth it to piss Tucker off and make this whole play just to save Brooklyn. Even though, if anything, there might be more willingness there from some of the other players, like Quinn, Angela, even now. And so there might be some and certainly Leah. So there might be some willingness there, but T'Kor and Kimo are the ones driving a potential flip, and they much prefer Chelsea. And so right now they've mostly given up on Brooklyn. So Brooklyn will likely leave if she's up against Cam. Certainly will if she's up against Chelsea. However, Chelsea against Cam is a different story. Assuming you have T'Kor and Kimo as locked-in votes for Chelsea to stay, they need 5 total. They should have Brooklyn if she comes off the block. Brooklyn would vote to keep Chelsea over Cam, which means they only need 2 more. They have Rubina on board. They've had Rubina on board for days. Rubina wants to keep Chelsea. She wants Cam out. She agrees with them on all points and is willing to vote with them, but she wants to talk to Tucker. But theoretically, they have Rubina, and theoretically, they should have Quinn. Those are the numbers I've been like locking in. Like Quinn has no reason to vote against them. He has no love for Tucker. It's not like he's going to side with Tucker against them if they want to flip. And he has no loyalty to Cam, who's coming after him. So Quinn should be a vote to keep Chelsea as well. That's 5. That's all they need. Now, the other votes, MJ, Leah, Angela, and Joseph, are where things get tricky. They're all pretty Tucker loyal, and so if Tucker pushes them, they probably vote to keep Cam. However, if they can finagle a situation where Joseph or that where Tucker isn't like pushing much, then it's possible they can make something happen. Um, so that's kind of where things stand. And the primary thing to do yesterday was make sure that at the very least that Quinn was on board. And so they do talk to Quinn about the vote. And with Quinn, that's all they need. That's locked up. The vote is there.
Yep, exactly. And I think Quinn specifically is someone who's like, I am going to vote out Brooklyn. I'm
He had to
gonna
be because this is how T'Kor and Kimo operate. Quinn had already told them days ago, I'm down to vote however you want. I assume you want Chelsea to stay? And they were like, I don't know, maybe. And then they didn't talk to him about it. And then again, he was like, so guys, I'm down. How do you want to vote? And they were like, yeah, we're not really sure yet. I'm not really. He's like, you do. I mean, you want to keep Chelsea, right? Like this kind of like, it's kind of obvious. And they were like, yeah, maybe, yeah.
Yeah, Quinn is not in a position where he feels like he could be pushing for anything, but he needs to be told that other people want to push for it. And then he's like, "Oh, I'm totally down. Like I'm definitely down to vote out Cam. That's totally like absolutely whatever you want." And it's always going to be whatever T'Kor and Kimo want. The problem is, and I understand, they're very hesitant to share a lot with a lot of people. And that makes sense. You don't want things getting back to you. I totally get that. You don't want to be seen as the arbiters of the vote. But when you then come away from conversations and are very frustrated with your closest allies because they didn't magically guess what you want for the week is interesting.
Yeah. So they eventually do tell Quinn they do want to keep Chelsea, and he agrees. He will keep Chelsea. And he's talking to T'Kor, Kimo, and Rubina about this. And so that's 4 votes right there, plus Brooklyn's if she comes off the block. That's it. The votes are there. The vote is flipped right now. It's just it is what it is. Any additional votes they get on top of this is that's just gravy. The only issue that remains is how does Tucker respond? Do they tell Tucker? When do they tell Tucker? Can Tucker flip this vote back? And so that's the thing we need to keep aware of as we move forward. But with Quinn on board, the votes are there to keep Chelsea. And Quinn is also like, again, not the most pro Tucker person. And the more that he talks with T'Kor and Kimo, I think the more that they are, I think at least in the moment, realizing like, oh yeah, we can probably trust Quinn with some of this stuff because Quinn has always kind of been on our side. Because he's warning them. He's like, guys, I think Tucker and Joseph are like really close. Like Tucker keeps talking about Brooklyn and Chelsea having a final 2, and I had only ever heard that from Joseph before Tucker started saying it, which means I mean I think they're really in cahoots, and I think that Quinn has other reasons to suspect this as well, including the fact that he told Joseph about his final 2 with Brooklyn, and then Tucker knew about it. But he's warning them, and that's something that they have already been talking about. So they're like, yes, yeah, we've been thinking this too. They all kind of agree that there might be some kind of secret final 2 between Tucker and Joseph. And let me tell you, they really dropped the ball this week, exposing this. I talked about it early on in the week when Joseph was like waltzing into the HOH room being like, well, I mean, here's the thing. This person is more likely to put the 2 of us up, Tucker. It's like this. It's just like and then they've been talking so much and hanging out in the HOH room and so on and so forth. Various things. If you want to keep your alliance a secret, there are some well-known strategies that they are not using.
Yeah. I mean, Quinn has even said, he's like, everyone keeps telling me that I should be working with Tucker, but part of working with people is generally being friends with them, and he won't talk to me for longer than 2 minutes. Then I see Joseph, who doesn't speak to anyone in this house, up there for an hour and a half. Like,
And that's
what is
again
going
the
on?
thing that I keep talking about with Joseph is that he doesn't hang out with people enough. And so it's so blatantly obvious who he's actually trying to work with because those are the only people he hangs out with for extended periods of time. Quinn is going to mention this to Joseph later in the night. He's like, dude, he's like literally like Joseph, who is like, hey, Quinn sucks. I know more about this game than Quinn's forgotten. Or I've forgotten more about this game than Quinn ever knew. And Quinn has to kind of be like, dude, usually when you work with people, you kind of like have a social bond with them and you have to actually like hang out with them. And he's like, what you do all the time where you're like, hey, I need to go leave. We can't hang out with each other for too long. Like, it's fine with me because like I'm like I'm a player of this game and I'm fine with it. But like if you want to actually work with other people, part of working with them is them actually liking you and you spending time with them. And Joseph was like, okay, yeah, sure.
Okay, Quinn, I'm taking advice from you. Look where you're at. Like it's not going to change. That just is what it is. But I'm very interested to see how the 2 differing superfan strategies continue to play out.
I mean, it's funny because Quinn is giving Joseph good advice on social game, which Quinn is better at. And Joseph has occasionally given, he's at least reamed Quinn out for his strategic mistakes. Yeah. So they talk through all of that. Now, again, there's more campaigning, including Chelsea's campaign to Joseph, which is seemingly very effective. They talk about the collective, and Joseph talks about how the way that it went down and the fact that he created the alliance, but then the power structure was sort of the hierarchy was sort of created that left him on the bottom, and how that's kind of frustrating. And Chelsea apologizes and says she doesn't blame him for anything that he did. She doesn't want to play tit for tat. And she always felt really close to Joseph. And now that everything's kind of blown up, she would love to go back to that. And she never even realized that Brooklyn was making all these final twos. So it's not like, she's going to be moving in that direction. And according to Joseph later, when he's talking to people that he does have incentive to lie to, at least, not at least, but that's the caveat there. Conversation goes very well to him, for him. He feels like Chelsea is a rational player and is telling him the truth and is somebody that he'd be capable of working with in the future. And so this is very, very big for Chelsea, because if she's able to get Joseph to be okay with keeping her at the very least, that could help seal the deal for her against Cam.
Yeah. We at least saw, I mean, I think it was on Chelsea's HOH week, so take that with a grain of salt, but they had a decent working relationship. They would have one-on-one conversations and felt like of people in the game, Chelsea was a good option for Joseph. So I'm not super surprised. This should be a number that Chelsea should be able to pick up. Now, can she hold it for long enough for the vote? Not super sure, but it shouldn't be the hardest person for her to convince in the house.
Yeah, and so if she has actually convinced Joseph, I think that Joseph is the only person that can talk Tucker down if he cares to. And so this is like if Chelsea stays because Tucker backs down, it will likely be because she convinced Joseph here. Like this could be the thing that saves her on the block. But we'll see. He could, because basically he goes straight to Rubina afterward and he's like, "So how's the vote looking?" And she straight up says, like, "I think we're gonna vote to keep Cam over Chelsea." And he's like, "Listen, I'm down to do that. I just talked to Chelsea. I think she's a logical player. I want to do what you guys are doing. I'd be down to vote in that direction if that's where you guys are going." So with Joseph on board, this is even more locked in, right? Like now they have 5, they have 6 with Joseph. And Joseph, really he's been trying to work on Cam, who's just not giving him a lot, because it's Cam. And so when with Chelsea being willing to give him some things, there's a chance that he may actually be convinced at the very least again to be okay with this, especially if they have the numbers anyway, similar to last week. So the flip is looking even more solid at this point, if Joseph is actually on board.
Yeah, that's the thing is like Joseph's not going to be the number to flip on Tucker, but he will flip if everyone flips on Tucker. Like he's not going to go down with that ship. Obviously, people have clocked that they are working together. I don't think that they have realized that Joseph is one of, if not the only person that Tucker really listens to in this house and takes advice from. So it is unfortunate for them that they like have the piece right in front of them and just cannot see it.
Mhm. So, Quinn, with the knowledge now that Chelsea is probably going to stay and that Brooklyn is the most likely to leave, he does let Brooklyn know, like, "Hey, you really need to win this AI arena." And he is trying to like maintain this relationship with her, and it does seem like that relationship still exists. When Brooklyn and Chelsea talk, Brooklyn does talk about like, you know, she does think that Quinn needs to go if she stays, but if she leaves, Quinn is one of the people she's rooting for to win. So she does still have that like again like social relationship with him, but strategically, she still thinks that he's somebody that she would put on the block at least as a pawn to take out Tucker and maybe take out of the game because he's too much of a threat. And so, you know, would it be good for Quinn if Brooklyn stayed? Probably not the best in the short term, but there's enough of an actual relationship there that he could probably turn things around with her at some point. He's trying to maintain that right now as well by giving her this heads up, like, "Hey, please win the AI arena competition. I really would like for you to stick around." In addition to that, he also talks to Chelsea and is like, "Hey, I think you've got the votes. I think we're good here. I'd really love for you to stick around. I'm a vote to keep you," stuff like that. So Quinn trying to get ahead of this upcoming vote, doing prep work for what he anticipates will be the vote. Of course, he doesn't do as much work with Cam. Cam is pretty anti-Quinn anyway, and really, it is very much in Quinn's interest for Cam to leave in the first place. So this all kind of works out for him.
Yeah, I think the Brooklyn and Quinn relationship is interesting because it feels like it should be repairable. And I think if you gave it like 3 weeks, they happen to both still be in the house. I think there's a world in which they could come back together. But for this week, I think they've just both done a little too much to sewer the relationship. They've been seen as too close. I think that people are going to have eyes on them if they decided to start working together and started hanging out all of a sudden. But so I do agree in the short term. I definitely think it's best for Quinn for Brooklyn to go. But I think it does remove a potential long-term ally, unfortunately.
Yeah, I could be wrong, but I feel like Brooklyn, while very annoyed and upset about Quinn ratting them out and ruining their games, also, like, there's a part of her that respects it and is like, damn it, like, I was trying to do that to him and he got me, like, and so, like, she still, like, needs to address the fact that he ratted them out, but she, like, understands it because she was basically doing the same thing to him, so we'll see where that goes if she sticks around. Um, so T'Kor and Kimo are gonna talk to Quinn more about Tucker, later on, uh or sorry, that's after that. Sorry, I missed the inciting incident there. Um, so I want to do a quick reset here. Tucker and Rubina, bit of a thing,
You don't
but
say.
lots of people have crushes on Tucker. And so for that reason, and maybe, maybe just general reasons of keeping the target off of him, he has been going around saying, Rubina, she's like a sister to me. There's nothing going on there. And that has opened the door for people like Leah, at the very least, to be like, oh, is that true? And so, there's, as we've talked about, been a little bit of like following Tucker around. People are even pointing it out, like Leah follows Tucker around everywhere he goes. And Chemo points out that he feels like, you know, Tucker expressed some desires, some of the things that he's into, his preferences. And then all of a sudden, a bunch of the women in the house, they're wearing less makeup. They've got curly hair. Oh, those happen to be the things that Tucker says he likes in women. So from the perspective of people in the house, this is how things are going. And it's largely, we can assume, because they feel like there might actually be a chance, or maybe they'd be doing it anyway. Who knows? But uh, but Tucker has been downplaying this Rubina thing as much as possible, saying she's like a sister. She's like a sister to me. It's just a sisterly, brotherly relationship. And I don't think he recognizes that line of argument's not going to work with every single person in the house. But last night they got caught a little bit. They got caught holding hands under the blanket.
Yeah.
That's a classic, which honestly, such a perfect way to get caught in this house full of crushes, like they're all in middle school, because that's such a like middle school relationship thing to do, which is holding hands under the blanket. And
Ugh.
like, yeah, yeah.
It's so funny because they've been doing so much work to make sure people don't think this is a showmance, and then to openly be holding hands in the house, I thought was bold at the very least, especially when so many people do have eyes on Tucker, and I would say that probably at least one or two other people have eyes on Rubina. Is a interesting strategy. I love later when Chemo it's like, so were you holding hands? Rubina's like, no, and just immediately puts her face into the bed, like just absolutely terrible at lying in it. Because look, she's happy about it. She doesn't even want to deny it.
Well, Scally, unfortunately for Tucker, or maybe fortunately, who knows? One of the people that caught the hand holding was Leah. But listen,
Yeah.
she doesn't care. It's not even a big deal. It doesn't actually even matter, and she doesn't care at all. But also, just so you know, Scally, Rubina never even slept in her bed last night. It's not even it was perfectly made in the morning. Like nobody even slept in it. And also, I asked her when she was going to bed the other night, and she got really upset with me that I was even asking her that question. Like, I'm 35 years old. You don't need to know when I'm going to bed. And so, like, there's definitely like something happening here. They were holding hands under the blanket, but I don't care. I just want you to know how much I don't care and how much it doesn't matter to me. But it's just like we should be like just be aware of it, I think is probably what I'm saying right now, which is that it doesn't even matter, but they were holding hands.
Yeah, I just think we should all talk about it. Can you pass me the hair straightener? They're still upstairs right now. They're all talking, and they have not even left the room.
What's funny is that she talks to Joseph about it first. And Joseph is who knows how Joseph is feeling in that moment, right? Because he obviously has his own crush on Leah, and so her not caring about T'Kor and Rubina, I don't know if he sees this as like, yes, or if he's like, oh, like she's down bad.
Look, I think you got to take the wins where you can. Like, yes, you're so right. He is taken. That's so true.
Man, wouldn't you just like a guy that isn't with Rubina?
Wow, it's such a shame where there are other guys that are just so eligible in here. That is crazy.
So she also talks to Brooklyn about it, and Brooklyn, of course, handles it very well, turns it into a conversation about voting to keep her, and how the women have the votes to keep her around, and that she really appreciates Leah, and that she, unlike Chelsea, who has been talking smack about Leah, and Leah's very upset about it. Brooklyn is like, you're just doing so well in here. You're representing yourself so well, and you should keep doing what you're doing. And Leah starts crying, and it's like this is again very effective work from one of the nominees, and you know I don't think Leah will be enough for Brooklyn, but it's certainly helpful.
Yeah. I mean, it just made it easier for Leah to like flip in any direction should the vote flip. I don't think that Leah's going to be driving this vote, but in the event that other people decided they wanted to keep Brooklyn, Leah would more easily go along with it.
Mhm. So, T'Kor and Kimo talk with Quinn about T'Kor because Quinn also noticed the handling. And so they start talking a bit more about T'Kor, and T'Kor starts opening up a bit more. T'Kor starts feeling like a little more comfortable talking with Quinn about some of this stuff, and she really starts going in on it. Like, yeah, I mean, T'Kor, like, isn't it kind of funny how T'Kor is like all about like, oh, all these people have final twos, and then he's making a bunch of secret final twos. Like,
Hmm.
I don't know if anybody else has noticed. I'm just pointing it out. I just feel like there's either a little bit of hypocrite, maybe. I don't know. I mean, I don't know if we need to use such words, but like, um, and like, whatever happened to T'Kor not liking Leah? I thought he really didn't like her. I thought he hated Leah, but now all of a sudden they're like best buds, hanging out all the time. Like, like what's going on there?
Yep. And little do they know the extent of the potential alliances that are on the table for T'Kor. And that is what's funny is Quinn is starting to point this out. And should any of these alliances that are in the works start to leak, I think it is always only going to like exacerbate the problem that they already would have caused because it's on their radar. They are talking about it. If a whisper of any of the others get out, which seems pretty likely given this house and given who's in that potential alliance, I think that it's going to be setting off some huge red flags.
Hmm. So, some anti-Tucker movement coming straight from, and the funny thing is though, like it's it's always T'Kor that's talking about this. Like usually Chemo takes the lead on things, but T'Kor is the one that feels this way. I don't know how much Chemo does. Of course, we've talked plenty about that before, but I think he doesn't like shut it down because I think he agrees with T'Kor. I just don't know how much he
Yeah, it's hard because obviously we also had Kimo talking about how when he has a down day, it's like T'Kor checks on him, Rubina checks on him a little bit, Angela does, but like Tucker's not there. And Tucker's not checking on him. And look, you have different friends for different reasons, and sometimes that reason is winning HOHs and vetoes. And that might be Tucker. He might not be the emotional one that's going to be there for you. I just think that Kimo is maybe projecting a little bit more of what he wants out of the relationship than what Tucker does, unfortunately, and I feel bad.
Hmm. So, as I said, Quinn talks to Joseph a little bit and gives him some advice. He should actually hang out with people and bond with them socially. But most importantly, late into the night here as we speed through this day, because we still haven't reached a conclusion. But there's an update to this chapter, which is that Rubina does talk to Tucker. So as I said, the vote right now. So by the way, Kimo also talks to Angela, and like Angela is willing to do whatever with the vote as well. If they want to keep Chelsea around, she's willing to vote that way. But again, that's before talking to Tucker. So both Joseph and Angela now have agreed that they are willing to keep Chelsea over Cam, but that's pre Tucker. Rubina has agreed, but this is and Rubina is much more on board than the two of them are. They're willing to go with it. Rubina actively wants it, but this is also pre-Tucker. So while they theoretically now have 7 votes, 3 of them may be contingent on Tucker approval. And if you do a little bit of math there, 7 minus 3 is 4, and
Hmm.
4 is not enough. So this is where the intrigue comes in as Rubina makes the case to Tucker for why he should at the very least allow her and them to vote to keep Chelsea. And she makes the case that they've all been talking about. Cam is a bigger physical threat. Didn't you say you wanted to take out the physical threats? Chelsea, I think, is willing to work with some of us. I think that there are different, like, other ways that it makes more sense for us to keep Chelsea around than Cam. Tucker says, no, no, that's no. One of them has to go. They're snakes. Tucker is very adamant, as I expected he would be, that Cam needs to stay, and one of the two of Brooklyn or Chelsea needs to go. This cannot happen. They will, the two of them together still in the house, they will manage to link back up and make more social moves. They are too dangerous to leave in this game. She's like, but Tucker, it's like, it's too late for them to do stuff like that. Like, the game isn't being played like that anymore. Nobody's capable of doing that stuff. And Tucker's like, yeah, exactly. Because of me. I'm the reason they can't do it. I'm the reason they can't do any of that stuff. As long as I'm here pushing this agenda, they can't make their moves. But if you don't listen to me, then they will be able to make the moves. I'm the reason. You need to listen to me to prevent them from doing those things. But she's like, oh, but no, but like, I just feel like they're not that. It's not that. Like like, what could they really do? He's like, no, if Chelsea stays with Brooklyn, the two of them together, they will be able to build back an army. They will take me out of this game. If Cam is gone, he's the only other muscly guy in the house. The only other distraction for me. I'm not worried about beating him. I can beat him any day of the week. Quinn can beat Cam. What I'm worried about is that if he's the only other person that people might go after, and like, I'll be the only muscly guy left. And so I need Cam around, and we need one of them to be gone. And she's like, okay, like, that's
Yeah.
fine. It's
Look,
just that everyone else wants it, like T'Kor, Kimo, Joseph. They all want Chelsea to stay. So, I mean, listen, I'm with you. I'll be with you, but maybe you should talk to them about this. So he's like, every time it feels like the argument's about to end, like, it kind of continues because she says she's willing to back him, but very clearly she wants to go in the other direction. But they do not reach a conclusion. it very much is like, all right, let's just talk more in the morning. You can talk to some of the other people that will be able to tell you what they want as well. Tucker does not back down. Rubina half backs down. And then they start making out.
Yes, they do. I mean, it is very much like, Tucker, what are you talking about? It's too late in the game, as if the game didn't flip 3 days ago on its head and everyone shuffled around in this house. Let's stop arguing. Put a pin in that. It's not closed, but when I get back from this diary room session, it's on. They're making out now.
Like literally at one point, Rubina's like, can we stop talking about this actually and talk about something else? And then very quickly things escalate.
Yeah. And look, it's the first like full-on makeout that we're getting on feeds, and the feeds linger there for a moment longer than you'd expect, and then swiftly change away.
Let me tell you what this, like my reimagining of what this was like in the control room. They were like, okay, yeah, they're talking game up there. Downstairs, there's another conversation we're about to talk about that's happening about the vote. Yeah, this is all fine. Oh, look, they started making out. That's interesting. Oh, damn, I just wrecked my stupid monitor setup again.
The freeze is so good.
I need to stop slamming my desk. It breaks my computer.
Please, I want a GIF, please.
All right. Scally, I'm gonna need you to hold the fort and talk about T'Kor and Kimo and pitching to Leah, and I'll be right back.
Yes. Well, because that's the thing. You have T'Kor and Kimo, and T'Kor is sorry, I'm trying not to just laugh at the screenshot. T'Kor is someone who, as Taran flagged up before, is not likely to be pushing super hard in many directions. Outside of she's not like loving just giving into what Tucker wants to do. And so she is going to talk to Kimo. They are obviously going to continue this line of vote flip. Go ahead and sorry, and to talk to Leah. But look, everyone is just losing their minds at this. But yeah, I don't know. Let's talk about oh, are we back? No. Yeah, that's the thing. Look, chat is losing their minds also, so I get it. uh yeah, but no. Let me also say what I was planning on. In that, like, it was a good thing. They're saying, okay, we have the votes. It's just a matter of telling Tucker. Like, good thing, because Tucker is definitely not someone who is very opinionated, is going to make waves, is going to go along with what everyone else wants. And so it's interesting to watch this play out, where it's like very obvious that Tucker is going to feel a certain way, and yet you're watching these people continue to have conversations that you know are like probably not going to matter in the end. It's very curious, especially because T'Kor and Kimo are doing all of this work, and I think that like it can work, but it can work once or twice, and they've already used that once last week. And I think that it's going to be tough to continue to spend social capital and flipping this house all around. Obviously, there is already a group forming that is potentially not including T'Kor and Kimo, and I think that continuing to spend the social capital is definitely like a risk that they are putting themselves in. But it's not as if they're doing something that is bad for their game. Like, they recognize what is better for their game, but I think, do they have enough social capital to be spending and come away with it cleanly is the problem.
Yes. Well, I have returned.
Look, I
My
tried not to laugh.
computer has been restarted once again. 2 podcasts in a row. My computer doesn't like it when I slam the desk. I'm sorry.
Hmm.
But that was that's what I was talking about. The problem was apparently their computers crashed, and they very narrowly avoided some sketchy stuff happening on those feeds with Tucker and Rubina. Let me tell you.
Yes, exactly.
All right. Well, Tucker and Rubina, they're doing their thing upstairs, but downstairs. I honestly I don't know what Scally's talked about. But I will tell you
Let's do it
what I'm
again.
gonna tell you anyway. Um Downstairs, T'Kor and Kimo are still working, and this time their target is Leah. Can they convince Leah to flip and keep Chelsea? Now, unfortunately for them, this is not the right one. If they were trying to get Leah to keep Brooklyn over Cam, they would have more of a shot here. But Leah is pretty firmly against Chelsea. She pushes back pretty hard. This is like there were two attempts happening almost simultaneously in the night. One was Rubina to Tucker, and that failed pretty dramatically. Tucker refused to back down. The other was T'Kor and Kimo to Leah. This also kind of failed. Leah was pushing back really hard, saying she doesn't think that they should be keeping Chelsea. She's been, in fact, pushing the opposite. When Leah talked to Tucker in the wake of the holding hands gate, she was telling Tucker that Chelsea is a problem. And hey, I saw Rubina talking to her for hours. Just so you know, Rubina was talking to Chelsea for hours. She actively wants Chelsea to leave more than anybody on the block right now. And so they kept trying to push back, saying, "Hey, I think we should make something work. I think that Chelsea would be good for our games." She just doesn't think so. She hates that Chelsea said that she's been flirting as a strategy. She also heard on top of that, and she heard that from multiple people. She also heard on top of that that Chelsea makes fun of her like intelligence. She's like calls her out for using literally and like a lot. And let me tell you, all of this is true. This is definitely some trash that Chelsea has talked. Chelsea is not a fan of Leah, and Leah has found out, and now Leah is very anti-Chelsea. So they do not make a lot of progress here with Leah. Now, I'm sure that if the votes were firmly there, Leah would be fine, like hopping over. But they don't really make much progress. And so afterwards, Chemo is like, this is maybe we went a little too far there. Like,
Yeah. And that's the thing. T'Kor is generally, like we said, not going to share a whole lot of her game. But when it comes to keeping Chelsea or her frustrations with Tucker, she's a little more willing to share things and maybe gets a little excited. And for T'Kor and Kimo, who generally are keeping their mouths a little quieter, not sharing too much, it feels like a big overshare, probably. I think even more so than it probably was. And Kimo recognizes that and warns T'Kor maybe a little too much, maybe a little too big of a push on that.
yes, and this is like again, like T'Kor or Akimo, I think has a bit of hesitation when it comes to this move. Like their positions have been reversed a little bit. Where last week Kimo was the one really pushing hard. He really felt like they should make the flip. This time around, T'Kor seems to be pushing harder, and Kimo seems to have a little more hesitancy, saying, "I don't want Tucker to turn on us over this vote. That would be very bad for us." And there's some validity to that argument, especially given the fact that like this situation might not even happen. And now Tucker is potentially going to be made aware that they're actively campaigning to turn against his wishes, and then the situation doesn't happen anyway. And now he just knows. He just knows that they did that. He's already making these other alliances. It is a risky position to be in. So he is warning T'Kor like maybe we should back off a little bit. T'Kor says, "I want to talk to Tucker in the morning." And she's gonna have the conversation. She's gonna do it. She's gonna convince. She's gonna have the conversation and convince Tucker that they should be allowed to do this. So will it happen? We'll see.
Yeah, because T'Kor feels like, all right, he got to pick the nominations. Now I get to pick my vote. Like you did the best you could. Now let's see how we feel about this. I don't think that's how it works in Tucker's mind, or in many HOH's minds. I don't think that they are going to easily allow their alliance to just, yeah, vote however you want. Like that's fine. I don't have any say in this. Don't worry about it. So I think that the conversation, let's say I look forward to it at the very least, but I am curious to see if T'Kor is as forthcoming with Tucker, because I do think she usually is not sharing as much, not as trusting with Tucker.
Mhm. So we'll see. So one of the things she plans to talk about, and this has been part of her reasoning, is that she's going to potentially tell Tucker, like, hey, I just don't feel comfortable taking out a woman of color, a black woman who is on the block, and try to like explain that part of it. Um, Again, I don't know if she will actually go through with this conversation or how much it will land in terms of like, okay, that's fine for you, but I don't think that everybody else needs to keep Chelsea based on that, right? Like, so we will see. We will see how much this goes. Again, theoretically, they have the votes. If they have Rubina and they have Quinn, they should have the votes regardless. But the question then becomes, do they actually have Rubina now that she's talked to Tucker and he has emphatically said no? Is she willing to go against that? Because it doesn't really sound like it. In addition to that, they potentially had Joseph or Angela. But again, if Tucker is now activated and goes to Joseph and is like, Joseph, don't you dare. Angela, we definitely need Chelsea out. I think Angela definitely goes with what Tucker wants. And then again, it's just a matter of how does Joseph respond? Does he care enough now that he has had this conversation with Chelsea to try and convince Tucker and maybe actually convince him in a way that Rubina was not able to? Or does Joseph just fall in line and then the votes just again aren't there? They tried and failed to get Leah, and so they can't pick up Leah as their fifth, unless maybe they find a way. Like maybe Tucker goes to Leah and is like, "Leah, don't you dare vote out Chelsea," and then she's so upset about the Rubina thing. But I don't think so. It just doesn't seem like Leah's that much of an option right now. So right now, today, Thursday, day 38 in the house. The eviction is tonight, and there's potentially going to be conversations between T'Kor and Tucker. Uh, but then also Tucker, Joseph, Tucker, Angela, Leah. All of these conversations need to happen. And whether or not this vote goes through depends on the urgency of these conversations, when they happen, how they happen. And as of right now, again, the votes should be there to make this flip happen. But I think the momentum is not really on their side right now. It seems as though as long as Tucker like does any amount of work, he should be able to flip this vote back. And in the event that Chelsea and Cam are on the block, it still may be Chelsea tonight.
Yeah, I'm so curious to see, because I do think once you flip that vote once, it feels very tempting. You feel very empowered. You look how easy this was. I could do this again. And I think especially if Tucker is actively pushing against this, trying to push this through is going to be very risky, especially if they actually strategize after the AI arena and try to make use of that time. I think it is just like almost a death wish at that point, because they were a lot more willing to blow up their previous alliance in last week and lose that and restructure the game than they will be this week. I don't think that like losing Tucker is a move many people are willing to do. So I think that tread a little more carefully on this vote. But I don't know. I would like to see it. It'd be entertaining.
Mm. All right. Well, Scally, anything else you wanted to bring up from yesterday?
No, I feel like we got a good summary of the house, a good meme out of today, and I'm excited to use it later.
Oh boy. All right. Well, that's what we have for you then today. Of course, we'll be back later in the day. I'll be on Twitch watching the episode, seeing how this all plays out live. And who knows, maybe I'll be on Twitch during the day today as well, as we see some of these conversations happen and see if this vote flip actually locks in one direction or the other. And then, of course, Tonight, after the episode, we will be live with Heisem to talk through the eviction, how it goes down, and what kind of fallout we can maybe expect from it. So tune in tonight for Heisem. And then tomorrow morning at noon Eastern, I will be here to update you on everything that happens today on the Big Brother 26 live feeds, including then also who the new HOH is and what the plans may be that happen tonight for next week. So tune in tomorrow at noon Eastern, because we will also be speaking with the evicted house guest tonight in the exit interview earlier in the morning. So tune in for that as well. And then we'll also have the Q&A later on. Plenty of Big Brother content heading your way. Again, find me over on Twitch if you want to hang out, chat, ask some questions, and get some reactions to things as they are happening. Scally, what do you got going on?
First of all, thanks for having me, Taran. So excited for Heisem. But you all guys are all going to go follow me over on Twitter, right? At Brian_Scally, right? So I am also on Twitch at twitch.tv/bscally, talking about the challenge season 40. Just finished its second part of the premiere, the milestone season over on the Free Agents podcast with Matt Ligori. People should definitely go check that out, and popping up elsewhere, so people should keep an eye out over on Twitter.
All right. Well, thank you all so much for joining us here today, and we will see all of you next time.